Okay, we are back here at Tierra Amarilla, which is in Tierra Amarilla, New Mexico. Obviously, this was the site of an old Air Force radar station. It's up on the hill up there, covered up by the trees. And very interesting place. This used to be the main gate. Getting kind of dark. I got here a little bit late. You see the front gate here and the guard shack up there. This was a very active radar stations in the 60s. What it was used for was to cover radar coverage for Alamogordo. And this would provide early warning for them down there to go ahead and get into cover. So it is posted now. It is also on the National Register, so I'm not sure what their plans are for it. Very interesting place. It's a shame to see it go to waste. I've had drone airborne and got some really good footage. The other thing I found interesting is I'm glad that the Census Bureau has been by. Good to see that they want to make sure that everybody's accounted for up there. The problem is the last airman left that base decades ago, so I'm not sure what they're doing there. Quiet place. Nothing out here but the coyotes. Interestingly, the base housing used to be probably pretty close to 10 miles away, down at a place called Lake Vardo, I think it was, or Varda, or something like that. Down towards that direction, down this road. Pretty quiet down here. The problem with it doing any restoration on it is it's so far out in the middle of nowhere that I don't know if you'd have anybody that would come out here and take a look at it besides me. I'd obviously like to really be able to get up there and take a look. It's too bad it's decaying, but the footage from the drone will show that pretty good. So, if you like these types of videos and these old places and odd places out here in Americana that made America's history, just go ahead and hit the subscribe button and let me know what you think down below. Take care. And welcome to the Mustang Adventure and Exploration. What we got going today is a drone flight over Tierra Amarilla, also known as call sign C-Train. Air Defense ID was P8, was in commission from 1950 to 1959. Very interesting facility. It was used kind of as a chain link up for air defense activities on the north side of the ADIZ, Air Defense Identification Zone. Its main objective here was to protect the people in Los Alamos. So if they had any type of attack coming over the north side of North America, they would alert the folks down there at Los Alamos so they could take cover. So we're kind of flying down the middle of Main Street here, passing over the barracks. Up there's the chow hall, always a good place. And what's left of the officers' quarters. You look straight out ahead there, and that is the communications receiver. The receiver actually obviously received radio transmissions or what have you. The transmitter's off to the left, actually. and they tried to keep the transmitter and receiver as far apart as they could to avoid interference. So, like I said, this was originally established in 1949. They bought up 80 acres, decided they needed a little more. They went to 107 acres that they acquired off farmers. It was placed up on the mesa, and the altitude is 7,280 feet above sea level. I'm going to be turning back here to the west. A little bit choppy. I didn't want to cut any of this out. I wanted to keep it. The environment is spectacular, beautiful place out there. You can see why they put it up there. It is right up on the top of everything. Really extraordinary facility. So like I said, it opened in 1950. It was staffed by the 767th ACW Squadron Air Control Warning, and it was laid within the Albuquerque ADIZ. So originally this place was actually called L44, and it was down in Alvarado, which is a little bit to the south. And actually I think Alvarado might have become a cantonment area when this was in operation, in addition to an on-site trailer court that was on location there. So originally when it was established, it was called a lash up, which was essentially kind of a radar chain. It had a capability to go out to 60 miles and look to 40,000 feet with an oval dish that was 360 degrees in rotation. So you look back here to the west, you see the heating building, that next building there, the square one, and then beyond that is the issue and supply building. Everything was that they needed was right there, within walking distance basically, because it was a kind of a long way to go back to Albuquerque or civilization. I remember 1950 they were out there kind of in the middle of nowhere. This is still an area that's pretty quiet. There's not much out there. So they staffed it in 1950 with 166 airmen and 16 officers, and one major was the commanding officer. You can see down into the rooms here, the dormitory. Kind of interesting. A couple of those you could look, you could actually see chairs and things down in there. It's two-story. And all the wood and tar paper have taken the weather's taken a toll on it. Obviously, they were built very well, but it's a pretty harsh environment out there. You can go from 17 degrees below to 80 degrees in that part of New Mexico. So right below where this is the radome for the radar. Right below where the drone's floating now. And there's two circles in the center lower that was actually for like I think they were water tanks or fuel tanks. You see there's a square in the center of them. Those were removed in 1997, I believe, by the, I think it was Army Corps of Engineers went in there to try to stabilize it environmentally. We're flying back to the north here. You look out ahead, that building out there with the graffiti on it, that's actually the Recreation Center, which was built in 1953. It was an indoor gymnasium to give them some year-round activities. Then your receiver or your transmitter off to the left there. In the center there, that was the square, that was where the trailer park was, where the trailer court. So they had an ability also with additional technology later on to focus on retaliating attack systems to include ICBMs, not just during the Cold War, Russian bombers coming over the north side there. 1958, it was updated to SAGE, which is Semi-Auto Ground Environment System. So the SAGE system would coordinate data from many sites together and form a picture. And that was kind of the new approach to things. Increased technology ended up reducing staff, and eventually it led to the Tierra Amarilla's closing. See, I'm looking back down to the front gate there. And we've got off to the left here is the operations building. can see there's a little bit of a all natural elevation there. That's why that area was picked to place that facility. Just a outstanding, just a beautiful view out here. Just great. Pretty place, I'm sure, although I'm sure it wasn't for the folks that were stuck there for 2 or 3 years at a time. So after the facility was closed in July 1961, it was handed over to the state of New Mexico. New Mexico Forest and Resource Conservation Division used it briefly, it's my understanding, and then they turned it over to the Northern New Mexico Community College, and currently the status is unused. It's from the south going back to the north. You can see where the radome was on the left, and then the round circles were, I believe, diesel tanks. Chow halls off to the lower right there. So in 1990, there were 2 underground fuel tanks that were removed, as I stated previously, and it was placed on the National Register of Historic Places. And of the original 107 acres, 42 was what was placed on the register. You see the guard shack down there on the lower left, and we're going back. It's starting to get a little bit on the dark side, starting to go back to the east here. You can see the sun still showing up on the mountains back to the east here. I got there a little late. Didn't mean to get there that late, but I did. So there were many things that were cleaned up in '97. There were some boilers that were pulled out of the heating building. You see number 2 there on the left. And those are pulled out of there with a 500-gallon diesel tank. And there were some, I think they were called Fat Boy boilers down there in the lower left on the heating building. Those are used to supply heat to the rest of the facility. Also had a sewer system, and that system was 1,200 feet east of the recreation building, so kind of east of where the trailer court was at the time, which is kind of in the lower left there. Several of these barracks, the one off on the right there, that was the officer barracks, and the one on the left was another airman barracks. Those were taken down, I'm not sure when, and I don't know exactly why. So they've had a couple ideas on what they might want to do with this place. I think one of them was possibly used as a prison, and then the National Park Service had proposed a night sky studies observation complex, which, for any of you who have been out in New Mexico or the Southwest at night, the stars are unlimited. That would have been a great thing to put there. So this is the operations building, and the what is actually it's called the primary electrical power unit. So there were 5 diesel generators, I believe, in here. You can see the imprints of these generators on the concrete once I get down here and take a peek in there. It also has 4 of the 5 exhaust pipes coming out the top, so I'm pretty sure there were 5 that provided electrical power to the radar systems and the facility itself. Trying to keep from bumping into anything. I started losing a little bit of a video signal here, and was, despite this still recording, was kind of flying blind on my screen here. I could just make out the drone over top of the mesa there, but signal was breaking up just a little bit. So I was doing some clearing turns here to make sure I'm not descending down into something I didn't want to descend into. So they, after studies, they came back with an estimation for environmental stabilization is going to be $1.5 to $2 million, and I don't know if they're going to come up with the money to do that or not. I certainly would like to see that. I think that would be pretty neat to try to preserve this facility. There's got to be some other options and uses for it. So you can just see the shadows in there, the outlines of the five. There they are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's probably where the generator's laid up. And pop back up so I can see a little bit better and make sure I got no trees around me or anything. So pop back out here towards the front. That bar across the front there of the gate, that actually was placed there by the Forest Service. That was not a sign that was put up by the gate there, by the facility at all. It didn't have anything to do with it. So this is a little bit brighter, and the reason why that is because this actually was taken the year before the last one in the fall. Both of them were taken in the fall. This one was a little earlier in the day, probably more like around 4 p.m. or so, and the other one was closer to dark. So we're going back to the east. You got your airman's dorm. The interesting thing about this is some of the pictures you see, it appears it was dirt. I'm not sure when they actually paved. It looks like this was paved or a concrete roadway. That might have been an improvement later on in the facility's life. I'm not sure. Operations building. If you take a look at, you get your heating building and your issue supply. We're going to come back around here. You take a look, you can see a silver pipe sticking up out of the top of the operations building on the right side there. It's going to turn a little bit more here. There we are. Little pipe sticking up there. And interestingly enough, I located a picture of the commanding officer standing on that pipe, looking back towards his facility, I would assume as it was being constructed. And have an interesting little clip in time there. I'm sure that was the command master chief that was there with him, talking about their facility. And they were flying back over the operations center, so this is kind of where the whole nervous system to the facility, I'm sure it was, definitely sure it was manned 24 hours a day. And they were manned by airmen that were put there during the Cold War in the middle of nowhere to serve their country. They did the best they could in the conditions that they were up against, and they prevailed. A tough group of guys. I don't know what that is. It's some type of I don't know. It's got 4 concrete like blocks there, and there's nothing on the maps about it. It's got a 6-inch, maybe a drainage slit there. So if somebody knows what that is, please let me know, because it's not on the maps here. So the interesting thing about this is it's literally a legacy to the Cold War and the men and women who fought to defend this country against what they thought was going to be a threat from the Russians. And they were constantly on duty, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. They were out there manning these stations to make sure that our country was safe, and they deserve to have hats off. Got a picture of the overhead here when it was early on produced, and you'll see how laid out, new the facility looked. And that's looking back towards the trailer court and the rec building. And there's actually a building behind the rec building that is a small utility building that ran, I believe, power for the square there where the trailer court was. So you had a short walk to work. There's the little utility building down there. Might have been a power distribution. There's a transmitter for the communications. This is kind of looking back down towards, well, the main road. There's one road in, one road out. There's a little bit of a power station off there to the left. You see it behind the tree. Then the next structure is going to be the actual guard shack. Still got the light post there too. You can even imagine a guy standing out there. So, and there's your overhead, U.S. Geological Service, see the radar dome and everything. Pretty neat. Well, that's it for this one. I'm going to be doing probably one shortly up in Upper Michigan, up in the UP, another radar facility manned by the Air Force. And I'll keep that one a secret, keep you to tune in for the next one. If you go ahead and hit the like button, please, and subscribe. I'm going to be doing all kinds of these from all over the country. Stay tuned. Take care.